Okay, I'm going to get started by just welcoming all of you guys. Welcome to Wat Tung. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Today is our group learning program where each Sunday and Wednesday I come together with students, helping them to understand the path to enlightenment. This is a 7-month program where each Sunday I go step by step through this book. Each chapter, I cover that in each Sunday. So what we do is we start with we start with meditation, and then afterwards I do a talk on the teachings. Today we're actually doing the third part of a 3-part series where I'm actually teaching the Eightfold Path, which is the core central teaching of the Buddha. And today I'm going to be teaching the mental discipline section. So we're going to start with meditation, and then we're going to move into a talk on the path to enlightenment, what the Buddha taught to be able to train the mind and get to this enlightened mental state. So if you'd like to join for the meditation, the way that I start this is with some chanting, just to kind of ease the mind into meditation. You're welcome to chant along. Their chanting sheets are over there on the cabinet. And for everybody online, you'll find these on our website at buddhadailywisdom.com. You can click on free books, and then you'll be able to get access to the chanting sheet down towards the bottom. It's important to keep in mind that the chanting is just to help ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. It's not a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer, or anything like that. So if you like to chant along, you're more than welcome to, because the Buddha used chanting as a way to help his students commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, they would come together and they would recite his teachings. After the chanting, I'm going to come in with some guidance, helping you to kind of learn meditation, instruct you in meditation while we're actually meditating. Then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together, everyone here at the temple and anyone who's joining online. And then we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And then that's where I'll start today's class, helping you guys to understand the mental discipline section of the Eightfold Path. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vichacharanang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusrang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. Nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. Whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหะกวาโอตังมหะกวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหะกวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหะกวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตวามนุสนังโอโตภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Welcome to everyone here at the temple, and welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. As I was sharing, today is our group learning program where each Sunday and Wednesday I come together with students, helping them to understand the path to enlightenment. What the Buddha did is he figured out how to get to this enlightened mental state where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer experience any discontent feelings. All the anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, all of that can be eliminated from the mind through training of the mind. The Buddha didn't teach rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, or prayer. He also didn't teach rules and commandments, and he didn't teach a bunch of beliefs. Instead, he's teaching you how to do this inner work of growing and developing, becoming a better and better human being. And the topic for today that I'm sharing is actually the mental discipline section of the Eightfold Path. This is the third part of a three-part series that I've been sharing here at the beginning of our group learning program, where here pretty soon in the next 2 weeks, I'm actually going to be going chapter by chapter in this book. In about 2 weeks from now, we're going to start in chapter 1. But here at the beginning of the program, I've been kind of giving students an overview of the path to enlightenment and really getting really in depth with the teachings as well. This mental discipline section is what's going to help you to be able to train your mind to eliminate all that anger, sadness, frustration, and other discontent feelings. As we go, I'm going to pause a few times and open up for any questions that you guys have. We have microphones here in the white bowl. You guys are welcome to use those. That way the people online will be able to hear you. All you need to do is press the gray button, hold it up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple. They'll be able to hear you online. And then you can keep these with you because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can share it with them. Or you can also, if you could just turn it off when you're not using it, that would help to be sure that we don't get any feedback through the speakers. And then for those of you guys who are online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and ask any and all questions that you like. So because this is part 3 of a 3-part series, I've already been teaching the wisdom section and the moral conduct section, but I know some of you guys might not have been here for that. I'm not going to have time to go through a recap of this entire wisdom and moral conduct section, but I'll just share with you about right view, just a little bit of this. What right view is where you understand the Four Noble Truths, that you understand that it's your own mind that's causing these discontent feelings. Because oftentimes people think that it's the outside world that's causing you to be angry, sad, frustrated, and all these other feelings. But the teachings of the Buddha are shared in such a way that you can independently verify them. And you can see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. It's the mind craving, desiring, longing, yearning, wanting things to be a certain way. The mind is craving permanence. If the mind gets what it wants and what it expects, it experiences happiness, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But if the mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. You can see this in your own life. If you think back to maybe when you were a kid and you asked your parents for chocolate and ice cream, when they gave you chocolate and ice cream, you were so happy, you were so excited. But when they wouldn't give you chocolate and ice cream, you were angry or frustrated. It's because the mind was craving this chocolate and ice cream. It was longing, yearning for it. Or if you see that when it's sunny outside, that you get really happy and excited about that, but when it turns to rain, you get sad or frustrated or irritated, that's because your mind's craving permanence. It's based its inner feelings on the sun, and the mind wants the sun to be permanent. So if you base your inner feelings on something that is impermanent, like the sun, then that means as soon as it changes from sun to rain, you'll be frustrated or agitated. Or if you get really happy when your bank account balance is up here, when it goes down here, you'll be sad or frustrated. The only thing that's happened in these scenarios is change. One day your parents gave you chocolate and ice cream, the next day they didn't, because ice cream and chocolate is not permanent. The sun, going from the sun to the rain, it's not permanent. The sun is not permanent. The only thing that's happened here is change. Or when your bank account balance goes from here to here, all that's happened is change. So you need to be able to look at your own life and be able to see this for yourself. So if you take a recent time where you've been angry, sad, or frustrated, or some other discontent feeling, and you look at that with these fresh eyes, you'll be able to see there was something your mind was longing, yearning for. And if you would have got what you wanted and what you expected, you would have been happy or excited. But because you didn't get what you wanted, you were irritated or annoyed or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. And you can have a breakthrough to being able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, because then you can actually eliminate them. And that's what we're going to be talking about here as part of the mental discipline section. You wouldn't be able to just eliminate your discontent feelings through the mental discipline section. You would need this entire path. And it takes about 2.5 hours to actually teach this entire path. But I'm only going to teach you this one little section right here, which will really help you to understand how to train your mind mentally to experience more peace and joy in your day-to-day life. The way you might think about this Eightfold Path is it's a core central teaching of the Buddha that everything else plugs into. If you had a speaker system and you had these 8 dials that you were tweaking to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers, that's what these 8 dials are. The Eightfold Path is these 8 individual dials that you're dialing into your life closer and closer to create a better and better performing mind. So the mental discipline section is a really important part, because the Buddha teaches you moral conduct, but not as rules or commandments. He's teaching you wise decision-making about what are the causes and conditions that produce harmonious relationships and produces a peaceful mind for you. Because as long as you go out into the world and you causing, things where you're maybe bitter and harsh or hostile to people through your speech or your actions or your livelihood, where you're causing harm, that harm is all going to come back to you. But it would be very difficult to implement any kind of moral conduct if you didn't have the mental discipline section. Because it's one thing to understand that it's unwise to talk with people in bitter and harsh and hostile ways. You can understand that intellectually, but to actually do it is very challenging for you, because your mind becomes overpowered with anger and frustration. So the mental discipline section is helping you to eliminate that anger, that hatred, that ill will, the bitterness and hostility, so that then you can have harmonious relationships with people. Because as long as you're putting out bitterness and harshness and hostility, it's all coming back to you. And you might feel like you're justified in your anger and hostility, but this is the mind causing that itself. Because when you don't understand right view, the Four Noble Truths, that it's the mind itself that's causing these feelings, you'll tend to push people away. You'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile towards them, or you'll put your expectations on them, trying to control them or pressure them to do things your way. And this is no fun to live life this way, because it's only a matter of time before you encounter someone that does things differently than you. And other people might be doing this to you too, where they're pushing you away. They're being bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, and they're putting their expectations on you. So the Buddha taught this better way of life, how you can get to this middle way and experience this better way of life, not as rules or commandments, not as religion, not as beliefs, but as a program that you can actually work internally, work on your own mind to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. But what's hurting you is not the outside world, it's the inner world. So by working on that inner world, you can actually improve what you experience in your day-to-day life. So I'm going to walk you through this with the words of the Buddha. This is the 6th step of the Eightfold Path. It's called right effort. It's the first part of the mental discipline section. I'll read this to you with the words of the Buddha, and then I'll actually teach it to you. Now, it might sound pretty obvious to you that I would recommend to you, anytime you're studying the words, that you're studying Buddhism, that you study with the original words of the Buddha. That might sound pretty obvious. Like if you're interested in studying the teachings of the Buddha, that you would study with the words of the Buddha. But you'd be surprised. I've been to over 200 temples in my life, and I've only ever been to one temple that shares the original words of the Buddha. If you do the math, that's less than 1%. So whenever you're exploring the teachings of the Buddha, you would like to use his original words, and that's what I'm going to share with you here. On right effort, he says, "In what, monks, is right effort? Here, monks, a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to prevent the arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to overcome evil, unwholesome mental states that have arisen. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not to let them fade away, to bring them to greater growth, to the full perfection of development. This is called right effort." So there's 4 things that the Buddha is teaching here as part of right effort. He's teaching you to prevent unwholesome mental states that have not arisen from arising in the mind. There's certain unwholesome mental states that are not currently in your mind right now. And the Buddha is teaching you to apply the effort to prevent those from ever coming into the mind. A good example of that would be like killing another human being. You probably have no interest in killing another human being. That's the farthest thing from your mind right now. And those types of things, the Buddha is teaching you to apply the effort to never allow that kind of stuff to come into your mind. But then there's certain unwholesome mental states that are in your mind. The Buddha in number 2 teaches you to abandon unwholesome mental states that have arisen in the mind. Let's just say you were in an existing relationship and you had a craving to have sex outside of that relationship. That's going to cause harm. And you would like to apply the effort to prevent that from ever coming in, you would like to apply the effort to abandon that out of the mind. Because as long as you allow that to come up into the mind, you might actually act upon it. And now you're going to produce harm, which is going to come back to you. So if you're noticing that your mind has this craving or longing, yearning to have sex outside of your existing relationship, that's an unwholesome mental state that is currently in your mind. And you would like to apply the effort to eliminate that out of your mind. Or say you notice anger, frustration, or irritation coming into your mind. That's an unwholesome mental state that you're going to act upon through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. And now you're going to cause harm, and it's going to cause damage in your relationships. So when you see that anger and frustration coming up into your mind, that's an unwholesome mental state that you're going to need to apply the effort to eliminate out of your mind. But then there's certain wholesome mental states that are not currently in your mind. Like number 3, that's what the Buddha is talking about here. To produce unarisen wholesome mental states to arise in the mind. So you're going to learn as part of this path to enlightenment that there's certain wholesome qualities that you're going to need to cultivate in your mind that are not currently in your mind. And you're going to need to apply the effort to bring those into the mind. Generosity is a good example of that, where you're willing to give and share with the people around you. Because with craving, desire, attachment, which is causing discontentedness, the mind will tend to hold on to things very tight and you'll be unwilling to share. The mind will be quite selfish and it'll find it very difficult to share. But when you practice generosity, where you're giving and sharing with others without any expectation of anything in return, that's actually helping your mind to let go. So if you notice that you find it difficult to share with people, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring this generosity into your mind. Or say compassion. Compassion is the concern for the misfortune of others. Let's just say somebody was indifferent to other people's suffering. They see somebody struggling. I don't care. It's not my kid. It's not my friend. It's not my family. I don't care. That's indifference. But then also you could be on the other side of this where you're worried and having anxiety. Oh my gosh, those kids don't have food. What are they going to eat? And you're so worried and having anxiety. So either side of this, your mind's not peaceful and it's not joyful. There's a middle way here, which is compassion, which is concern for the misfortune of others. This is a mental state that you can maintain. So if you're noticing that your mind is either indifferent or you have worry and anxiety, you're going to need to bring this wholesome quality of compassion into the mind. And then number 4 is to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not allowing them to fade away. Work to increase their growth in the mind. There are certain wholesome mental states that are currently in your mind right now, like loving kindness. I suspect that all of you guys have loving kindness in your mind, which is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. But it hasn't been brought to full growth and full perfection and full development, because in certain situations, you get angry and hostile and bitter towards people, and you might be harsh with them in the way that you interact with them. That's because your loving kindness hasn't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. You're going to need to apply the effort to bring that up into the mind more and more so it permeates in your mind, and now you can treat everybody with loving kindness. And that's part of the training. Or say sympathetic joy. Sympathetic joy is the joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. This is the opposite of jealousy or envy. You probably have sympathetic joy. If somebody was like, hey, I'm thinking about going to Thailand, you might be like, oh, I've been to Thailand. That's a wonderful place. They have mango and sticky rice. They have massages. They have elephants that you can play with. Oh, you're going to have a great time. Enjoy yourself, right? So you might actually have sympathetic joy for them, joy for their success, even though you didn't contribute to it. But if maybe you're at work and there's a new position that opens up and it's a bigger salary, a bigger office, bigger title, maybe nicer office, nicer salary, more responsibilities, all these kinds of things. And maybe you apply for it and somebody else applies for it, some of your coworkers, and they get the job instead of you. You'd probably be jealous or envious in that situation. That's because your sympathetic joy hasn't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. So you're going to need to apply the effort to bring that up in the mind so it permeates more and more in your mind. So this is right effort, where you're applying the effort to prevent unwholesome qualities from arising in the mind. That you apply the effort to abandon unwholesome qualities that are currently in the mind. That you apply the effort to bring in wholesome qualities that are not currently in your mind, and you apply the effort to support and encourage the wholesome qualities that are already there. The way I explain this to my young son is kick out the unwholesome and bring in the wholesome. That's what you're looking to do. And this is going to take effort. You can't just stumble into enlightenment. You can't stumble into this mental state. One of the things that's the biggest myths about the life story of the Buddha is people think he sat under a tree, he meditated, and he instantly got to enlightenment. This isn't actually true. It was gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. And you know this to be true because everything in your life has been that way. Whether it's to learn to read, write, and speak a certain language, or maybe some job or occupation that you have a special skill, it's been gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. And right effort is an important part of that gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. So do you guys have questions on this step, either here at the temple or anybody online? Anything you'd like to ask about right effort? Okay. Looks like, gentlemen here, you have a question? Yeah, go ahead. Just takes a second for it to engage.
Yep, there we go. So you're saying all of these things are like knobs that you need to fine tune for yourself. How do you know when you're there?
That's what the next one is for, the next step.
Okay.
You'll understand that. Yep. Cool. Okay, so I'll share that next step with you, okay? So these examples that I shared with you here, these are just examples that I'm using to help you understand right effort. What's wholesome or unwholesome that's in your mind, that's going to be unique to you, right? And this next step is what's going to help you to actually be able to figure that out. So this is called right mindfulness. Here's what the Buddha shares on this. In what, monks, is right mindfulness? Here, monks, a monk resides, reflecting on body as body, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on feelings as feelings, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mind as mind, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mental objects as mental objects, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. This is called right mindfulness. So he's talking about four things here. Body as body, feelings as feelings, mind as mind, and mental objects as mental objects. This is what's referred to as the four foundations of mindfulness. But before I explain that to you, let me just talk about mindfulness in general. Mindfulness in general is awareness of mind. That's what's going to help you know where you've actually been in terms of what's going on in your own mind. Oftentimes in the unenlightened state, we don't have awareness of what's going on in our mind. Your thoughts, your ideas, your feelings, your emotions, the condition of your mind. You might just be kind of plowing through the world without really looking at your own mind. Mindfulness is to have awareness of mind. Now, this word mindfulness has made its way into modern conversations, and oftentimes people are using it in a way that the Buddha didn't use it. And if that's the way they would like to use it, that's up to them. But I'll share with you how the Buddha used it and how other people use it so you can see the difference, and then you just choose for yourself how you think about it. Sometimes people say, can you mindfully carry this glass of water to the table? What they're really saying is, can you carefully carry this glass of water to the table? But they've replaced the word careful with mindful. That's not how the Buddha used this. Again, however people would like to use it, that's up to them. But if you're interested in understanding the path that the Buddha taught, the way he used the word mindful is awareness of mind. And you're going to need to build some general awareness of the mind, and that might be where you start on the path. But ultimately, you'd like to be able to get into understanding the four foundations of mindfulness. That's what's actually going to transform your mind. What the Buddha's doing here is he's teaching you the life cycle that your discontent feelings are going to take so that you actually are aware of this and you can actually apply right effort to be able to fix it. So what the bodily sensations are that you need to be aware of is this is the early warning system that you have that's alerting you that you're about to get angry, or you're about to get frustrated, or some other discontent feeling. When you're noticing the tingling in the body, the tightening in the chest, the tightening in the throat, the heat in the face, the pressure in the skull, that's the early warning system alerting you. You're about to get angry. Your mind's about to get frustrated or irritated. And what the Buddha teaches you is to apply right effort to cut that off and let it go. Right? You can preserve your mind from ever having to experience that anger, frustration, sadness, and all those other discontent feelings. You're not suppressing your feelings or repressing your feelings. You're actually cutting it off and letting it go before it actually becomes a feeling. It's kind of like if you were in a boat going from Australia to Indonesia, you'd like to prevent the water from ever coming into the boat. Because as soon as the water comes in the boat, you've got a real problem to deal with. So as soon as the anger comes into the mind, you've got a real problem to deal with now. So you'd like to prevent it from ever coming into the mind. So that's what the Buddha teaches you how to be able to do. And these steps that I'm going to teach you, including the next one, is what's going to help you to be able to do that. So now that when you notice that early warning system, the bodily sensations, you can cut it off and let it go. When we say, like, I feel like I have butterflies in my stomach, all that is the queasiness in the stomach before you get shy, right? If you're going on stage or you're doing a presentation, you might have this queasiness in the stomach. That's the bodily sensations alerting you. You're about to experience shyness, right? So you can actually clue into this and you can see that it's happening before the mind actually experiences the feeling. So the bodily sensations are like, I'm about to get a conditioned feeling. I'm about to get angry here. I'm about to get frustrated. I'm about to get angry. And you're like, nope, not going to let you do that. You apply right effort and you cut that off and let it go. And now if you do that enough, eventually your mind won't actually experience any kind of anger, frustration, or other discontent feelings. You just need to train your mind to be able to do that. And it takes time to get to that point. But if you miss it as a bodily sensation, and you will because your mind's not fully trained, it's going to become a feeling. And that's the next foundation. You need to be aware of those feelings. And if you missed it as a bodily sensation, cut it off as a feeling. But if you don't cut it off as a feeling, it's then going to affect the condition of your mind. This is like where you might be grumpy or irritable for a few minutes, a few hours, a few days. Have you ever been grumpy and irritable for like a week or two? Of course you have, right? Because you didn't understand this. You didn't understand to cut it off at the bodily sensation. You didn't understand to cut it off at the feeling. So your mind experienced this irritability and grumpiness for like a week or two. That's the condition of the mind. So if you miss it as a bodily sensation of feeling or a feeling, you need to cut it off at the condition of the mind. Because if not, it's going to feed what's called a mental object. A mental object is a deeply rooted container in the mind. And in this example, it's ill will. Like, for example, right now, you don't have any anger in your mind. You're just listening to someone talk, right? But there's a deeply rooted container in your mind called ill will that if one of your cravings get triggered, that ill will is going to arise. That's the mental object. So, for example, we weren't born with ill will in our mind. We weren't born with anger and hatred. We didn't go into the nursery at the hospital hating other babies, right? That was something that was cultivated and that was well rooted in the mind as we aged. Because when we were younger, we asked mommy and daddy for ice cream and they gave it to us. We were so happy. But when they didn't give it to us, we got angry. And we didn't cut it off at the bodily sensations because we didn't know. We were too young. And we didn't cut it off as a feeling. And we didn't cut it off as a condition of the mind. We were grumpy and irritable for a few hours, right? We didn't like that. We didn't get chocolate and ice cream. And it formed this deeply rooted container called a mental object. And in this example, it's ill will. There's other mental objects too. Conceit is a mental object. This is like the arrogance, the pride, the measuring and comparing that we're better or worse than other people. This is what the mind does in the unenlightened state. We didn't have this when we were a child. We didn't go into the nursery at the hospital like, my gloves are better than your gloves. My hat's better than your hat. My crib's better than your crib. That's something that we did as we aged. But you can eliminate this out of the mind, but you need to have awareness of these mental objects. So this is right mindfulness, that you have awareness of each of these four foundations so that you can then cut off and let go at the bodily sensations. I'll explain to you how this looks in real life because this was the technical description of it. But let me show you like a real life example of how this would work. Let's just say you're watching the news. And as you're watching the news, you notice this tingling sensation in the body, the tightening in the chest, the tightening in the throat, heat in the face and pressure in the skull. You're about to get angry because you're seeing something in the news that's triggering one of your cravings. It's triggering your mind where you're craving permanence. You're craving the world to be a certain way, and it's not that way. The world's full of impermanence. So where you're noticing that bodily sensation, you would like to turn off the news. Go for a walk outside. Go wash your hands in the bathroom. Go get a drink from the kitchen. Don't just sit there and dwell and allow the mind to form the anger. Don't allow it to form that feeling and dwell in it. You can redirect the mind by applying right effort. And that's going to preserve your mind and protect your mind from having to experience that anger. Over time, as you train your mind, you'll be able to sit there and watch the news and not experience any anger coming up. But while your mind is under training, you're going to need to apply right effort to redirect the mind rather than sit there and allow the mind to form that conditioned feeling. So do you guys have questions on right mindfulness? Anything you'd like to ask here? This is awareness of mind, but more specifically, the 4 foundations of mindfulness. You wouldn't be able to apply right effort without right mindfulness because you need to be aware of what's going on in the mind to then apply the effort to prevent the unwholesome and cultivate the wholesome. So it looks like Marcy has a question. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Teacher David. Would it be correct or good understanding that we were talking about, when you're born, you don't have these mental objects of ill will in the mind? Would it be a good understanding to say that these mental objects are fed and created because we're born with craving in our mind, correct? When we come into existence, correct? There's craving from past experiences and past lives.
There's craving, and then there's that ignorance or unknowing of true reality. Yes.
Okay. And because of that ignorance of unknowing of true reality and that craving, is that what helps contribute to building these mental objects that did not exist in the mind at birth?
Yes, because the mind's going to crave as you age, and it's sometimes going to get what it wants and sometimes not get what it wants. That's where the anger and frustrations are rising. And because of the mind's lack of wisdom, it doesn't realize that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. So therefore, it's attributing that anger to something external. And the mind doesn't have the wisdom to cut off and let go. So it feels those feelings and it experiences the condition of the mind, and then it forms those mental objects.
Right. Thank you very much, Teacher David. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I don't see any other questions. So let's go to the last one for today. You wouldn't be able to practice right mindfulness without right concentration. You would need this to be able to build your mindfulness. So here in the Eightfold Path, this is the Buddha actually explaining what's called the jhanas. The jhanas are preliminary phases that you experience on your way to the first stage of enlightenment. These are enhanced qualities of mind. I'm not going to read this because this is actually the results of actually practicing the entire Eightfold Path. When the Buddha actually teaches you how to practice right concentration, he teaches it in other parts of his teachings. So that's what I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you how to practice right concentration. And then as you do, and you put together all the Eightfold Path, you actually start experiencing these enhanced qualities of mind that he's talking about here. So the way to practice right concentration is to develop a meditation practice and practice singleness of mind. The meditation practice that you would like to develop is you would like to first start with breathing mindfulness meditation. That's what we did here today as part of our class, where you are focused on the breath, and anytime the mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and let it go and bring the mind back to the breath. The goal here isn't to eliminate your thoughts. Sometimes people think that's the case. It's not actually the case. Even enlightened beings have thoughts during meditation. The difference is that an unenlightened being, they'll have a bombardment of thoughts, or they'll have a thought and then they'll kind of follow it and indulge in it for a period of time, maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And then you're like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm meditating. Let me bring my mind back to the breath. Where an enlightened being, they'll have a thought, they'll notice it right away, they'll cut it off and let it go, and then there'll be stillness and quietness in between their thoughts for about 30 seconds or a minute. So your goal here isn't to eliminate your thoughts. Your goal is to notice your thoughts sooner and sooner and cut it off and let it go easier and easier. That's what breathing mindfulness meditation is doing. It's building that mindfulness or awareness of mind, the concentration, and the ability to let go. Let go, let go. Because with craving, desire, attachment, which is causing these discontent feelings, your mind doesn't know how to let go. That's why when you broke up with a boyfriend or girlfriend and you were angry or frustrated or lonely or bored, or you were missing this person for a period of time, that's because your mind hadn't let go yet. But eventually your mind let go. You're like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. Or if she wants to live in another part of the world, okay, so be it. And you let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. But the mind doesn't know how to let go. So that's what the breathing mindfulness meditation is doing for you, is training your mind to let go. The loving kindness meditation is training your mind to eliminate anger, hatred, ill will, and all the lesser versions like frustration, agitation, annoyance, even the slightest dislike. Oftentimes people think that when they like somebody, that's coming from the other person, or when they dislike somebody, that's coming from the other person. But it's actually coming from your own mind. You have certain cravings and wants and expectations. And if people meet those, you like them. But if they don't meet those, then you'll dislike them. And you'll think that dislike is coming from the other person, where in reality it's coming from your own mind. So this loving kindness meditation essentially rewires your mind to be loving and kind, so that you can go out into the world and be loving and kind through your intentions, speech, and actions. Because when you're the opposite of that, when you have inner hate, bitterness, and hostility, it comes out in your intentions, speech, and actions, and you damage your relationships. You would like to get to the point where you're not doing that, because whenever you put that out, that's what's coming back to you. You can look at your relationships and you can see where you're bitter and harsh and hostile. Those people are also bitter and harsh and hostile with you too. So if you like to get to a peaceful mind and a joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life, you're going to need to transform your mind in the way you interact with people, so that way you can be loving and kind. And then you'll experience loving kindness coming back to you. So this meditation is like filling up your gas tank and then going out into the world and being loving and kind through your intention, speech, and actions. Oftentimes people think the way to improve their relationships is to change the other person. You will never improve your relationships that way, because you can't change other people. You actually need to work on changing your own mind. So this loving kindness meditation is going to help rewire your mind to be more loving and kind, so that you can go out into the world and be loving and kind through your intentions, speech, and actions. And now you'll experience more harmonious relationships. So you'd like to build up your meditation practice to 2 or 3 sessions per day for about 30 minutes per session. Now, for some people, that can sound like a lot. But remember, it can take you 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to this. And there's probably some unbeneficial things that you're doing in your life right now. If you scaled those things back, you'd actually have more time. Because you can look in your life and maybe you're searching social media for 2 or 3 hours a day. Or maybe you're just looking at YouTube video after YouTube video kind of endlessly, right? Well, you can scale that kind of stuff back and you'll actually have more time available to you. Right? So you can build up this type of practice, but you're not in a race or a competition with anybody. It's your own journey to enlightenment. And now you can just gradually build this up over time. Then you'd like to practice singleness of mind. This is doing just one thing at a time. Oftentimes people have been taught to multitask. It's not actually possible for your mind to multitask. What you're doing is you're doing something for 3 to 5 seconds. Then you're doing another thing for like 4 or 5, 10 seconds. Then you're doing something else for 6 or 8 seconds. And your mind's racing around doing each thing individually. You're not actually doing all these 3 things at one time. It's kind of like a horse racing around a racetrack. And if you've ever been to a racetrack and you see horses racing around a racetrack, when they go to the barn, they're all hyped up. They can't calm down. They're so hyped up. Well, your mind is the same way. If you do that with your mind all day at work, where you're racing around, when you get home, you're going to find it very difficult to relax. You might have stress and anxiety in your mind. So you like to just do one thing at a time. So if you're watching, say you're in a business meeting and your boss is talking, right? And you're having this really important discussion about some project at work. Maybe your mind starts wandering and you're thinking about going to Thailand. Maybe 3 months from now, 6 months from now, you're going to Thailand. You got to cut that off and let it go and come back to whatever it is you're focused on, because that's what's going to produce beneficial results in your day-to-day life. Or say you're washing the dishes and you get a cut across your hand because your mind is wandering, right? You're not focused on washing the dishes. And now it's going to actually take you more time to go to the hospital and get that taken care of. So you like to just focus on one thing at a time. There's people that are dead right now that didn't understand this. They were walking down the street talking on their phone and they weren't paying attention, and whack, now they're dead because a car hit them. Right? So you're not interested in trying to do multiple things at one time. Just do one thing at a time, right? That's what's going to produce the wholesome results for you. The way that I think about this is if you had a piece of wood and you had a steel rod and you were grinding that steel rod back and forth, at the beginning, it's going to bounce around a lot because there's not a groove yet. But if you grind this steel rod back and forth enough, you're going to get a nice groove going. And when it pops out, you're going to know that it's popped out. You're going to bring it right back to the groove. But if you get this steel rod going back and forth enough, you're going to get a deep enough groove that it's never going to pop out. That's the way the enlightened mind is, that it's focused, it concentrated, it has clarity, that it doesn't pop out. It can stay focused the entire time. So that's what you would like to be doing, is just one thing at a time. Your meditation practice is helping you to build up that focus and concentration, but you also need to be training your mind all day to practice singleness of mind, because that's actually what's going to produce the wholesome results in your life. Because when you have concentration, you can access your wisdom, you can make wise decisions, and then you can actually produce wholesome results in your life. But when you don't have concentration, when your mind's all shaken up, you can't actually access your wisdom and make wise decisions in your day-to-day life. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this one. It looks like we have a question coming in. Looks like Paul. Go ahead, sir.
Hey, David, excuse me, what I'm doing lately in my meditation is I'm thinking of concentration. I'm trying to concentrate better during meditation, meaning I'm thinking, concentrate to stay focused on the breath. Because when I just stay focused on the breath, I don't very well. And so it seems to help to think, concentrate, because you're supposed to have right concentration. So if I'm thinking of concentration, I'm thinking more of staying on track, my breathing. You'll probably say that that's not good because that's a thought, right? Is that what am I right about that?
I wouldn't say that it's not good, because I don't say good or bad, but it's definitely not what you're interested in doing, because your mind is still holding on. It hasn't let go. It's holding on to that thought of concentration. So your mind is going to move off the breath. The goal here isn't to eliminate your thoughts and stay on the breath the entire time. That is actually impossible. When your mind actually moves off the breath, that's actually helpful, because now you have an opportunity to let it go. So the way you think about it is there's this post and this pillar, and now there's this 6 animals that are pulling and tugging in all these different directions, and they're tied to the post. So the alligator is pulling one way, and the monkey is pulling another way, and the bird is pulling another way. As they pull and they get to the end of the rope, they're getting yanked back to this post or pillar. Your breath is the post or pillar, and you'd like to focus on that with your mind, but your mind is going to pull just like that wild animal, and that's the opportunity for you to yank it back. These wild animals, if they pull and pull and pull and pull enough and they keep getting yanked back, eventually they're going to realize, I'm tied to this post and pillar. I'm just going to sit down and be calm right here by this post and pillar. Your mind's the same way, that as it pulls and you yank it back, and you keep doing that repeatedly over multiple sessions, not only in meditation, but outside meditation, it's going to eventually realize that it's tied to this post or pillar, and it's just going to sit down and be calm and still by that post or pillar. But if you're not allowing the mind to pull, then you're not ever allowing it to be able to get pulled back to the post and pillar. So you're not interested in doing what you're describing. People in Thailand sometimes do it this way too, and it's a big misunderstanding. If you look at the instructions of the teachings of the Buddha, he doesn't teach to do that. Here in Thailand, they will sometimes say, pu, to, or they'll say, they'll count with numbers. And you're not interested in doing any of that kind of stuff, because it's just allowing your mind to hold on to a thought. It hasn't actually let go in these situations. And that's what you need to train it to do, is let go. So that in day-to-day life, when you're out and about and you're noticing the anger arising, you can let go. But your mind can't do that if you just keep giving it something to think about.
You're like to think, or I guess that's the word, think. When you're focused on the breath, as you should be, you should not be thinking. Like that's the part that I seem to keep missing is when you say focus on the breath, fixate on the breath, you're not to say ever in your mind breath or breathe or breathe in through the nose, breathe out through the nose. You should never be thinking any of those things.
You're not interested in introducing those thoughts into your mind, but the fact is that your mind will have thoughts while you're meditating. It is going to happen. You're going to be in meditation and you're going to be thinking about what am I going to have for dinner tonight? Or what am I going to do tomorrow during the day? It's supposed to be a nice weather day. Or you're going to be thinking about the past and things that are going on in the past. As your mind does that, you would like to yank it back to the breath, but you're not interested in introducing the thoughts into your mind. Just focus on the breath. And when the mind pulls off the breath, yank it back to the breath. And that's what's going to train your mind to let go.
How do you stay focused and fixated on the breath without having it in your head? Like if you didn't, you'd be thinking all sorts of thoughts. You have to somehow fixate on the breath without, saying breathe or breath or breathe in. You're not to, that should not be in your head. Those, because that is a thought in itself. You can't have any thoughts.
You're not understanding.
You have to be fixated on the breath.
You're not understanding, Paul. You're saying that you can't have any thoughts and you have to stay fixated on the breath. What I'm saying is you focus on the breath and the mind will have thoughts. And when it has thoughts, you pull the mind back to the breath. That your goal here isn't to eliminate your thoughts and stay fixated on the breath the entire meditation. That's not your goal. Your goal is to focus on the breath, understanding that the mind will pull off the breath. And when it does, let that go and come back to the breath.
To focus on the breath is to not think of focusing on the breath. You're not thinking, you're just, I don't know how you focus without thinking. Like that isn't focus a thought. Sensation is a thought.
No, you're just focusing on the sound of the breath or the sensation of the air. So you're focused on that sound. Your mind focuses on that sound. That's the post or the pillar that you're focused on. But you don't need to introduce any thought in order for that to occur. You're just allowing your mind to fixate on that sound.
Okay, so you never should be thinking or in something in your mind going, breathe, breathe in. It should just be that it's happening. Like, and you notice you're off of it and you're on a thought, you just go back to that.
Exactly.
Whatever that is. Like, it's not a thought, but it's a fixation.
Yeah, you just fixate your mind on the breath, knowing that it will go off the breath occasionally. And when it does that, you just bring your mind right back to the breath.
Last point, David, is like what I find myself doing a lot is slumping, where you're supposed to be erect, upper body erect. Is it okay to sort of remind yourself when you're slumping to then sit up again? Like,
yeah.
Because if you don't, you just slump further and further and you lose focus. It's good to notice and redirect the upper body when you notice that.
Yeah, if you like, you can kind of like lightly put your back up against the back of a chair or the back of a wall or something like that. So you have that little bit of guide, and that's going to actually help you to stay erect. So if you do notice that you're slumping at any point during your meditation, yeah, go ahead and straighten up.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think you have a question here. Yeah.
So I understand the importance of focusing on one thing at a time, and it's something I try consciously to apply. But where I struggle is that I have this habit of combining listening to music or podcasts with some other activities, especially if they are mechanical. So would you say here that I should dedicate specifically time where I only listen to music or podcasts, or are there some circumstances that is okay to combine these two things?
Yeah. So when you're doing your training on your mind, you would like to train to do just one thing at a time. So like say somebody's like running on a treadmill and they're listening to music. They're listening to music because if they just ran on the treadmill, they're going to experience boredom because their mind's craving some kind of stimulation. You will never get over that boredom by just listening to music because the music is not permanent. What's causing the boredom is the mind is craving, it's longing, yearning. And now that craving is also producing a lack of concentration in one's day-to-day life. So what you do is you train your mind to do just one thing at a time, get rid of the music, get rid of the podcast, and just run on the treadmill. And you do that for 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever it is, and train your mind to enjoy running on the treadmill if that's what someone enjoys doing, just as much as they do when they're doing something else, right? That they can do the treadmill without the music and be just completely content and peaceful. And now after you've overcome that 3 months, 6 months, a year, then if you'd like to bring the music back in, you can, but you can see that your mind isn't bored. You're not doing it based on boredom. So your mind is focused and concentrated at that point, and you've gotten rid of that crave and desire attachment. So whatever activity you're doing where you're listening to podcasts or music, do that activity without that for an extended period of time. And you'll see initially your mind's probably going to be bored or, experiencing loneliness or whatever it is, but you'll overcome that over multiple months of training your mind that way. And then when you've seen that there's been multiple weeks and months where you're not bored, you're not lonely in that activity, then if you decide to bring back in the music or the podcast, you'll be able to do that and your mind will still be focused and concentrated at that point. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, it looks like Marcy has a question. Go ahead, ma'am.
You, Teacher David. Going back to the breathing mindfulness meditation, I have noticed that over the time that I have dedicated to breathing mindfulness meditation, I have developed, I wouldn't call it like focusing on the breath, but I call it more of an awareness of the breath, where the mind is just aware of the breath coming in and out. And those are like the moments of, just aware of the breath. It's just an awareness. It's not like I'm breathing in and out. I'm not doing any of that. I mean, is that a normal progression when you go from like, really trying to focus the mind on feeling that breath come in and out of the nose to more of a relaxed awareness?
Yes. The mind basically just really kind of like chills out, for lack of better words, right? It's almost like the mind is like standing on the head of a needle, and it's just like everything's just completely peaceful and joyful and content. You don't need anything, you don't want anything. That's the whole thing. If you can train your mind to be peaceful and joyful, just focus on the breath. Well, then when you go outside and you see beautiful flowers and rainbows and butterflies and all that stuff, wow, you can easily enjoy that stuff, right? So that's what you're doing, is you're training your mind to not long and yearn, and you can just be completely content on the breath. So if you're noticing what you're calling that awareness of the breath and the mind is just still and quieted, that's what you would like to get. But then there's an occasional thought, and that's where you just cut that off and let it go and come back.
And I do notice that when the thoughts come in, the mind is aware of them rather quickly. And it's a real quick kind of like, it's just like, boom, gone. And it just goes back to just being aware of the breath.
Yeah. Yeah. You've been
All right.
training for several years. So you've gotten that benefit now of having been able to train like that. So you're seeing, what I'm describing as the ideal way of ultimately what you're working towards. But it takes multiple years to get to that.
Yeah.
And it starts with what I was talking about with Paul.
Correct. All right. Thank you, Teacher David. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Sir, you have a question?
Yeah. So you just said something about needing and wanting. When you're in a mindfulness meditation, are you practicing the singleness of mind by, if you have a need, are you addressing that need during those times, or when you're doing something, are needs coming first? Like, I'm hungry, I need to eat, or I'm tired, I need to sleep, or things like that. Like when we were doing our meditation, I was having a little pain, so I laid down, I addressed that feeling of a need. Are those?
Yeah, that's wise. You would like the body to be comfortable, not painful and not luxurious, but in the middle where it's comfortable, because the mind is the boss, the body is the employee. But you've got to go through the employee to get to the boss. And if the employee is painful, it's not going to take you to go see the boss. But also, if the employee is too luxurious, it's not going to take you to go see the boss there either. So you'd like the body to be comfortable. So yeah, if you need to eat or you need to sleep or something like that, because you'd like your mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. Meditation is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. So if there's sleepiness, if the body is hungry and it needs food or any of these other things, if there's pain in the body, you'd like to address that so that the way the mind can actually be well trained, because you're taking care of the employee. So then it'll go take you to go see the boss. Okay. So I don't see any questions anywhere else. So I'm just going to add this last thing just as a recap for us to summarize, and then I'll end class here, is that right effort is to take initiative to eliminate unwholesome aspects of the mind and cultivate wholesome qualities of the mind. You're going to need to apply the effort to do that, to bring in the wholesome and eliminate the unwholesome. Then you're going to need right mindfulness so that you can be aware of how to apply right effort, which is awareness of mind, but more specifically, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, where you're aware of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. And that comes with time to develop that. Then there's right concentration, where you're practicing meditation, and then you're developing the mind through practicing singleness of mind until you're experiencing what's called the jhanas. These are preliminary phases where there's enhanced qualities of mind that you're noticing those qualities in your mind, and you'll know that you've put together the Eightfold Path really well. And now you're making your way to the first stage of enlightenment, because there's 4 stages of enlightenment. So that's actually what I'm going to be teaching next week on Sunday. I'm going to teach the 4 stages of enlightenment and the 10 fetters. These are the 10 pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind. And that's what you're eliminating in order to be able to experience more and more of the qualities of enlightenment. So that's what I'm going to be teaching next week. So I'll just end the same way I started, by thanking you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and understand the path to enlightenment. As you guys would like to learn more, there's lots of opportunities for you to do that. This Wednesday at 9 a.m., I'm going to be teaching here, or I'm going to be doing meditation, and then I'm going to be teaching about Buddhist pilgrimage. This is something that some people like to do, is go on Buddhist pilgrimages. So I'm going to actually be sharing some photos and things. I actually just recently got back from India and Nepal a few weeks ago. So I'm going to share some of the photos from that and do some meditation with you guys. On Fridays, we have a social event here where people come at 6 p.m. and we just have a good time spending time with each other. It's like a party, and we have music playing, we play games and have food and all that stuff. And then there's regular classes on Saturday and Sunday. So you guys can see all of that stuff on our bulletin board over there or on our website. So thank you everyone here. Thank you for everyone online who's joining as well. Whatever you guys choose to do today for the rest of your day, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.